The film opens in Montenegro in 2008, where David Mason is having lunch with a woman he likes. His mentor, Peter Devereaux, approaches as she leaves and warns him against relationships in their line of work. Peter then points out a man secretly photographing him. Peter and David prepare for a mission, donning body armor. David, carrying a large duffel bag, heads to his position while Peter is driven to an ambassador's house for protection. David sets up with a sniper rifle overlooking the town square, communicating with Peter via comlink. He spots multiple potential threats and suggests calling off the operation, but Peter insists they proceed. Posing as the ambassador, Peter listens as David warns that his vest won't protect against a headshot. Suddenly, a gunman draws a weapon, causing panic. Peter orders David not to shoot, but David disobeys and kills the assassin. In the chaos, a young boy is accidentally killed, a moment that horrifies Peter. 5 years later in Switzerland, Peter has retired from the CIA and runs a small coffee shop. One day, an employee tells him someone is waiting for him, his former boss, John Hanley. Hanley shows Peter files on 3 murdered agents he once worked with. Peter says they knew the risks, but Hanley insists they weren't supposed to die. Hanley explains that Russian assassin Alexa has been hired by presidential candidate Arkady Federov to erase all evidence of his past crimes. He then hands Peter a file on Natalia Ulanova, an agent who has gotten close to Fedorov and holds proof that could destroy him. She won't reveal a key witness's name unless she's extracted from Moscow to St. Petersburg, and Hanley wants Peter to do it. Meanwhile, in Moscow's Russian parliament, Fedorov delivers a speech while Natalia, his trusted aide, secretly breaks into his safe. She quickly photographs incriminating evidence and manages to return everything before he gets back. Acting normal, she leaves. Outside, David and a CIA team track Natalia as she drives away using a drone. Meanwhile, Fedorov notices his safe door is ajar and a key left behind, realizing Natalia has betrayed him. In U.S. Embassy, Siberia, Hanley and his team, including Celia, watch Natalia drive away. Hanley gets a video call from Perry Weinstein, who insists many people are interested since Fedorov is involved. Hanley tells him they have it under control and don't need him. Natalia thinks she's escaped when 2 FSB SUVs appear. Just as they corner her, Peter arrives, kills 2 agents, and orders her to get in. Shocked, she asks about their daughter, Lucy. Peter assures her that Lucy is well and misses her. Hanley's team doesn't realize Peter has Natalia. Perry orders Directive 42, despite Hanley's protests. Peter demands Natalia give him the name. It's Mila Filipova. He calls Hanley to find out what went wrong. Meanwhile, David, following orders, shoots at Peter's car, mortally wounding Natalia. As she dies, she hands Peter a cell phone. Heartbroken, Peter kisses her goodbye and prepares for revenge. He spots the CIA drone heading toward a parking garage. David and his team try to escape, but Peter intercepts them, killing 3 agents. He and David, his former protege, face off, unable to shoot. They silently drop their weapons and walk away. Watching the drone feed, Perry is confused. To erase evidence, David detonates hidden explosives in the van. He calls Hanley, demanding to know why Peter was there. Celia is unaware, but Hanley and Perry know the truth. Peter escapes in a taxi, examines the phone's photos, takes the memory card, and tosses the phone out the window. Hanley is at home reviewing Mila's file when a CIA strike team storms in. He destroys his hard drive before they taser him unconscious. David returns to his apartment. While preparing food, he finds his neighbor's cat inside and returns it. In Belgrade, at a refugee center, journalist Edgar Simpson approaches Alice Fournier, hoping to expose Fedorov's war crimes. At Belgrade International Airport, assassin Alexa arrives, checks into a hotel, unpacks her guns, and begins stretching. Back at the U.S. Embassy in Siberia, David is debriefed by Perry and Celia. When asked why he didn't kill Peter after he wiped out his team, David says Peter wasn't a threat and acted just as he would have. Perry reveals that Natalia and Peter were involved, making Peter's mission personal. The order is clear. Peter must be eliminated, David agrees. Peter breaks into Hanley's apartment and finds two CIA techs trying to recover data. He knocks them out. Alexa visits a hacker at a web cafe and learns that Mila has been in contact with Alice, making Alice her next target. Meanwhile, Peter ties up the CIA techs and tricks the CIA office into tracing Alice's cell phone, discovering she's connected to Mila. When David calls the tech's phone and gets no answer, he realizes Peter has found a lead. Alice and Edgar meet at a restaurant, where Edgar wants to expose Fedorov's crimes during the Second Chechen War. Alice dismisses it, saying atrocities are just another cycle of news. Edgar insists Fedorov's presidential run makes it the perfect time to reveal the truth. Alexa, disguised as a waiter, tells Alice she has a call. Peter, also in the restaurant, spots her and calls Alice's phone, warning her that Alexa is an assassin. As Alexa reaches for a knife, David and his CIA team burst in. Peter yells for Alice to run, and she follows him out the back. Peter and Alice escape through alleys into a crowded marketplace. David's team uses a phone scanner to track Peter, who calls David, trading taunts. Alice demands answers, but Peter tells her to trust him if she wants to survive. She pretends to walk alone in the subway, luring one of David's agents. When he chases her, Peter knocks him out, tampers with his phone, and continues on with Alice. David's team struggles to locate them due to Peter's interference. In a parking lot, Peter smashes a car window, triggers the alarm, and pulls the fuel line. When David arrives, he senses a trap. Peter has already hot-wired another car and is escaping. Peter shoots the spilled fuel, causing an explosion that covers their getaway. Meanwhile, Alexa follows Edgar. On the train, Peter tells Alice that Fedorov wants Mila silenced because she can expose his war crimes. Since they can't find Mila, Alice is now the target. They ride the train to put distance between them and the CIA. At Alice's office, Peter finds a file on Mila and asks where she is. Alice says she hasn't seen Mila in 3 years, for good reason. Mila pretended to be mute around Fedorov, who treated her like a pet. She overheard key secrets, including the conspiracy to bomb a building that sparked the Second Chechen War. Peter notices a photo and asks about the man in it. Alice identifies him as Denisov, a pimp, but Peter reveals he was actually Fedorov's right-hand man during the war. They visit Denisov's club, where Peter warns him that Fedorov is eliminating anyone who knows the truth. Peter asks what really happened. Denisov admits that the Chechens had oil but refused to sell, so Fedorov orchestrated an attack, blowing up a building with his own soldiers inside, to justify the war and take the oil. The entire war, costing thousands of lives, was a false flag operation. Worse, the CIA knew about it and even helped. Peter is stunned. Meanwhile, at a CIA black site, Hanley is interrogated by Celia. Defiant and rude, he mocks her and refuses to talk. Back at the CIA office, Perry reviews David's conversation with Peter and warns David not to let Peter get inside his head. He hands David a flash drive. At home, David examines the files. He finds photos of Peter and Natalia together and grows furious. Peter always told him not to form attachments, yet he did. Then, David discovers Peter's reports about him, describing him as reckless and impulsive, even recommending his removal as a field agent. He notices his neighbor's cat has wandered in again. Returning the cat, David turns to leave, but his neighbor, Sarah, stops him. She says they've crossed paths many times, but she knows nothing about him, not even his name. He finally introduces himself. Peter buys multiple burner phones while telling Alice that someone will eventually find Mila, and it won't be good. He then breaks into an apartment after seeing a couple leave. Inside, he pours himself a drink. Alice asks about what happened in Moscow with Natalia, but Peter is distracted when he spots David and Sarah getting into a taxi. Their apartment is right across the street. David and Sarah go to a nightclub, share a kiss, and spend the night together. David seems to have decided there's more to life than just his job. Back in the apartment, Alice plays the piano, and Peter compliments her. She says a phrase in Russian, explaining it means the piece is her favorite. Peter is surprised she knows the language, but she tells him her professor parents taught her. He watches as David and Sarah return home. Alice asks what will happen to Mila. Peter tells her Fedorov will kill her to bury his crimes. He gives Alice cash and a phone, telling her to wait for his call. She can't follow him on what he's about to do next. The next morning, David wakes up to find Sarah gone. His phone buzzes, a text from Sarah. He replies, but her phone rings in the kitchen. Suspicious, he checks his dresser for his gun, but finds it's missing. He checks 2 other hiding spots. His weapons are gone. In the kitchen, he finds Peter holding a gun to Sarah's head. David tries to calm her, but Peter plays mind games, making her ask David if she's worth saving. David hesitates, and Peter seizes on it, saying that proves his point. David finally yells that she is. Peter, recalling David's past remarks about not caring who he kills or if he dies himself, decides to give him a final lesson. Holding a knife to Sarah's throat, he leaves his gun for David to grab. As David reaches for it, Peter tests his true character, describing a scenario where an enemy cuts a hostage's femoral artery. Before David can react, Peter slashes Sarah's artery and walks away. David immediately chooses to save her, applying pressure to the wound. An ambulance arrives, and she presumably survives. Celia continues interrogating Hanley, asking what the CIA really does. She says they collect information, but Hanley corrects her. They collect people. They blackmail those who have done terrible things, turning them into puppets for the U.S. government. Fedorov arrives at a Belgrade hotel for a commission meeting. In the hallway, he gives Alexa new orders. Alice meets Edgar at his home, ready to share Mila's story. As he grabs a recorder, Alexa emerges from hiding and stabs him repeatedly. Alice watches in horror. When Alexa lunges at her, Edgar, in his dying moments, trips Alexa, giving Alice a chance to escape. Meanwhile, David cleans Sarah's blood from his floor. Looking through Peter's files again, he takes a closer look at the photos and realizes Peter has a daughter, Lucy, and reports this to Perry. At a CIA black site, Peter knocks out 2 guards and enters Hanley's interrogation room. He demands answers. He knows the CIA helped with the bombing that started the Second Chechen War and wants to know which agent was involved. Hanley reveals it was Perry. Peter then asks about Mila. Hanley mentions her parents were professors who taught her fluent Russian. Suddenly, Peter pieces it all together. Alice Fournier is actually Mila Filipova. Alice goes to Denisov's club and tells him Peter needs a big favor. Back at the CIA station, David and Celia realize the real Alice Fournier died years ago, and Mila assumed her identity. David urgently asks where Fedorov is. Mila is going after him. Alice disguises herself as a prostitute and heads to the hotel to kill Fedorov. Peter calls, warning her it's suicide, but she refuses to listen. She enters Fedorov's room, once again face to face with the man who destroyed her life. Asking to freshen up, she goes to the bathroom and stares into the mirror, flashing back to the war, watching Fedorov murder her family. She wraps the mirror in a towel, smashes it, and grabs a sharp shard for a weapon. Another flashback shows the first time Fedorov assaulted her, the beginning of years of suffering. Alice pretends to undress, then lunges, pressing the glass to his throat. She tells him it's for her family, and he finally recognizes her as Mila. Instead of fear, he taunts her, saying if she really wanted to kill him, she would have already. He breaks free, pins her down. Peter arrives at the hotel, kills Fedorov's security, and bursts into the room, saving Mila. He tells her to record Fedorov's confession, but when Fedorov refuses to talk, Peter plays Russian roulette, pulling the trigger on an empty chamber twice. Under pressure, Fedorov finally confesses it was John Hanley, not Perry, who helped him. Peter is shocked, believing Perry was behind it. Holding up a photo of himself, Perry, and Hanley, he demands answers. His worst fears are confirmed when Mila recognizes Hanley. Realizing he was set up from the start, Peter tells Mila they need to leave immediately. By then, David and his team have arrived. Peter engages in a gunfight, killing 2 agents. He steals a master key card from a maid and tells Mila to hide in a room until he returns. Pursued into the basement by David, they engage in a brutal fight, ending with Peter choking David unconscious. Peter drops Mila's phone, containing Fedorov's confession, and tells David to watch it before disappearing. After recovering, David returns to the CIA office and finds Celia. They watch Fedorov's confession and realize they're in over their heads. They decide to take the evidence to Perry, but when they arrive at his office, they find Hanley, now promoted to Perry's position. Hanley dismisses Celia and orders David to sit. Meanwhile, Peter reunites with Mila at the hotel. He urges her to disappear, believing escape is better than death, but Mila refuses to run anymore. She asks about his life. Peter shares that he had retired, started a small business, and had a daughter who barely knows him, who will now never know her mother. He calls his daughter's phone, but Hanley answers. Hanley has kidnapped Lucy. Peter warns Hanley not to hurt her, but Hanley proposes a trade, Lucy for Mila. He also reveals they only knew about Lucy because of David. Hanley tells David the CIA has decided Federov is too valuable to lose. With Hanley in charge, they will handle things their way. The next morning, Peter tells Mila to go to the train station and buy 3 tickets for their escape. Mila is willing to surrender to save Lucy, but Peter knows that won't work. It would all be for nothing. Mila agrees to go, but makes Peter promise that he and Lucy will make it there. Peter meets with Hanley, David, and the other agents. Hanley explains that controlling Fedorov means controlling Russia. Once Fedorov becomes president, Hanley plans to force him into NATO, giving the U.S. full leverage to target the Middle East. At the train station, Mila buys the tickets. Instead of waiting, she sits at a web cafe and begins writing an expose on Fedorov's crimes, his war atrocities, her family's murder, and the truth about the Chechen War. She signs it with her real name and credits Edgar Simpson. Peter is given a phone to speak with his daughter, proving she's alive. Afterward, he gives Hanley a fake bus station location, sending David on a wild goose chase. Hanley talks to Peter about his old spy nickname, the November Man, because after you passed through, no one lived. Unknown to the agent with him, David isn't actually chasing Mila. He and Celia now see the full picture and refuse to be part of it, especially the kidnapping of a child. Celia tracks Lucy's phone call location, and David deliberately causes a car crash that kills the other agent. He storms the hideout, kills the kidnappers, and rescues Lucy. Meanwhile, Alexa visits her hacker contact, who finds Mila's train ticket purchase. She thanks him with a bullet to the head. Hanley continues justifying his actions to Peter, but Peter tells him he may have finally gone too far. At the train station, Mila is still writing her expose when Alexa spots her. They lock eyes, and Mila bolts. A chase ensues through the subway and onto the streets, but Mila is ready. She ambushes Alexa with a shovel, smashing her face. Alexa tumbles down the stairs, dropping her gun. Mila picks it up but sees Alexa is likely dead. Instead of wasting time, she returns to her computer and keeps writing. David returns to Hanley, appearing without Lucy. Furious, Hanley demands to know where she is. David simply says, "It's done," then turns on Hanley's men. He and Peter take out the 3 agents guarding Hanley and hold him at gunpoint. Hanley insists they just cost the world a decade of peace, but Peter doesn't care. He won't sell his soul for a false sense of order, letting men like Fedorov escape justice. He thanks David, then escapes with his daughter. Peter and Lucy arrive at the train station just as Mila finishes her story. She sends the email, then joins them, and they escape together. Later, embracing her true identity as Mila Filipova, she gives a deposition to government officials. She details the murder of her family, the rapes she endured at Fedorov's hands, and his conspiracy with CIA agent John Hanley to stage the bombing that started the Second Chechen War. The revelations ignite a media firestorm, ending Fedorov's presidential ambitions. Hanley's fate is left unclear, but since David didn't kill him, it's likely he faces life in prison or even the death penalty for treason. Fedorov, denying all charges, retreats on an extended vacation, likely plotting his next move. On a yacht, surrounded by young women, Fedorov believes he has escaped justice. But as he stands on the deck, a single shot strikes his head, sending him overboard while a woman screams. His killer is unseen, but it's strongly implied to be David, an expert sniper, righting his past mistakes and ensuring Fedorov finally pays for his crimes. If you enjoyed this video, Don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.